Beep was jumping up and down amid the scaly fishman nests of that Second Empire tower, signalling her intention to jump again each time with a certain vocalization. Yes, yes, Gustafsson was cawing. Eventually, Nuke had to step in. Amazing, but can we go now? He asked. We go to war! Gustafsson bellowed. Then all the hivers started making that certain vocalization. Sorry guys, I made it worse, Nuke reported back to the guild, shaking his head. I understand it, Prince Tashino, Isaiah said. They want to crush their enemies, and that invigoration has taken a hold of them. Right. When talking about the hivers, no one is allowed to say invigoration, or satisfaction, or excited, or, there's just paste everywhere, and the way they rub it all over. Look, the manga market isn't ready for that. They're not ready, Nuke ranted. Luckily, Beep herself eventually decided to stop the party.
Beep, we go. Beep, we must sublimate the false queen. Beep, we must accumulate her feelings to bridge the fog gap. Beep, she said.
Yep, go on then. We'll be right behind you. Actually, which way is the wind blowing? Shall we go ahead? Nuke muttered. Everyone followed the hivers out of the tower and over to the east side of the island, where another string of pontoons ferried them back to the mainland. Ahead of them were mountains as sharp as bone dog teeth, utterly impassable. They are beyond the disturbance, Gustafsson said. We must find a hole to their private domain and enter swiftly. I'd say we should get this guy a girlfriend, but that's kind of the problem, huh? Rick commented. These impenetrable cliffs, or plain old impassable as Nuke would prefer they be called, extended in a long arc around a salient of land, with a thin strip of flat ground between it and the southern sea. The land was free of any monsters or beasts, so that's a nice break, huh? And then they discovered why this was the case, and the break broke.
Okran's Yorod,
Uzumi said.
That's a lot of giant robot crab spiders.
Indeed. Ahead, the narrow passages, the main official dry, above-board and dull routes, were patrolled by legions of Second Empire spider soldiers.
I've never seen anything like it. We must be careful, Izzy, Elena said.
Oh, okay, Izumi said, surprised to hear that name from someone else. You're right, Ellie. This is more than a wandering scout, Isaiah nodded.
Oh, okay,
Izumi whispered, slipping back through the veil of awkwardness. In the end, the marching ranks of spiders could be easily bypassed. They seemed to just walk off to scan about the steep hillsides, while the guild walked past undetected in plain sight. Or was that what the doddering bots wanted them to think? The reason for such skepticism came shortly after, when traversing a bend in the coastline revealed a village up ahead. A neat row of square houses sat between a pair of tall sandstone towers, all with human-sized doorways. It was almost too convenient. Yet convenient it was, especially when a front of searing acid rain suddenly rolled off the sea. The guild rushed forwards and into the nearest of the towers to escape the downpour. There they met the locals. Humans, enforcers, experimental subjects. We regret to inform you that you are not permitted to exist, a mechanical voice said. It came from the very walls of the structure, and not from the gang of sword-wielding skeletons standing shoulder to shoulder inside the door. Oh, it's the boys, Rick said, stepping forward. Still bashing, huh? Stand down, you freaks. Warning, blacklisted ID ping detected. Case 15983, General Redlin Ricard. Treatment, exile to darkness. Special comments attached. Make that playboy regret it. No one crosses this cowgirl. Due to breach of sentencing, you will be recycled immediately. Fog? That old fire's still burning, huh? Rick said, raising his stick.
Rick, are they gonna kill us?
Izumi whispered. Nope. And with that, Rick sent the head of the nearest skeleton bouncing off the walls. Everyone got stuck in as well, with more bots charging onto the scene from upstairs and outside. They all look like Agnew, Nuke noted. Yep, Biobash Knights, Rick said. Would have thought they'd get rid of him same as me, but I guess they kept him for a rainy day.
And Rick, what's that about a cowgirl? Izumi asked.
Oh, don't you get started. Yeah, I got a history, so what? You thought you were my first?
Wait, I didn't say that.
Yeah, well, forget it. Dead news. Is this about old Moneybags, old Lone Star, old Waxy Dioscuri?
Neil asked.
It is, man, and you're meant to be practicing your forgetting.
Old? Wait, you only go for older women, Izumi said, crestfallen.
I can't believe you're making this about you. And that's why I love you, sister. But your free trial's over, so go back to your toy boy and biobash all you like. Also, you want to kill these guys or not?
They did kill those guys, or at least they shut them down for a while, long enough to get out of there. But right outside, a group of spider soldiers were waiting. "We're in the spider's web. Get slicing," Sandor said, and at once another fight broke out. A few spiders were deactivated, but they would not lie still, for the guild dragged them along for more research. Well, that was the stated reason, but perhaps it was just a chance to hold something overhead to block the continuing acid rain. They all half ran along the thick-grained beaches and over rocky bluffs, shedding skin cells all the while, where applicable. Darkness fell, but they came across another structure at the water's edge. It was the ruin of a Second Empire military outpost, but don't let that ruined status trick you into thinking it wasn't fully operational. As soon as Nuke opened the door, Biobash Knights swarmed the guild from the shadows all around.
"Parasite vectors, neutralize,"
they chirped.
Never liked your kind anyway,
Twitch said, running a sword through one of the assailants.
"No offense, Agnew."
Agnew said, his own blade just as kebabbed. Another knightly company was silenced, after which the guild locked themselves in the outpost for a night of applying fishman paste to acid burns, which made them hurt significantly more. Izumi took it in her stride at least. It was all a lost cause, really, for in the morning it was still raining, or paining if you will, and they did. The mountains between them and the Southern Hive were as much as a turn-off as ever, so on they trotted along the beaches. The odd lone spider bothered them during the morning, and were quickly added to the pile of priceless junk the guild hauled. There was another orderly village on the horizon around lunchtime, but the legs of spider bots were poking out of the alleys between the buildings. "I count at least a dozen. Might be easier to build our own roof than conquer theirs," Weston reported. "Yeah, I'm bored of getting beaten up," Nuke said. "This fucking rain, it just hurts all the time. Why isn't this fucking hair waterproof?" "You need to change your skin to be more like us, Beep," Beep proudly announced. I bet that means we need to associate, huh? You offering?"
"Keep your distance,"
Gustafsson interjected.
"You are associated to me and me alone, understand?"
Not what I thought the problem was, but yeah, I'll save myself for you.
"Excellent. You needn't wait long. Now we continue. The wind is changing. The pass is close."
"I'm close to passing wind already,"
Els said, and they all laughed. And by that I mean they had no reaction whatsoever, but trudged on through the fizzy rain until finally it seemed that they had arrived somewhere. The land sloped upward, and the ground turned from a gravelly sand to a stony dirt. Now you might say the difference between gravelly sand and stony dirt is not especially remarkable, but truly the guild were clinging to any hope they could get. They clambered up into some rocky hills, the rain fading to only a gentle sizzle-drizzle, and collapsed in a big pile at day's end. They were at the southern tip of a long, wide valley, with the same toothy mountains to the west and lesser reddish mountainets to the east. Over the last 2 days they had passed from one side of the Southern Hive's hunting ground to the other, and while the climb up the mountains looked easier from this direction, the only thing the guild were looking at was that nostalgic pre-death slideshow in their brains. Weston lay out the sleeping mats, and they all slumped au naturel like wild animals, a description that was only appropriate for a few of them. "Could it be time to begin plotting a route back to the Empire?" Weston asked Nuke.
But we're here now. I don't really feel like going anywhere. Can't the Empire come down to us? Nuke complained. I fear they would only encounter the same issues. We are so far from safe harbor. Then we have to make one. Good idea, my man. I didn't. Weston knew that continuing to speak would have no impact on what was about to transpire, so he wisely saved his breath. He was about to need a lot of it. We, as brave and noble representatives of civilization, must tame this shitty land, Nuke announced. Must we? Izumi said. What will history say of us if we just give up and go home? Whatever I want, I'm writing it. Oh yeah, that's a point. But no, what about the poor hivers? What about the world? We cannot tolerate the things that are happening. Weston, go get us some comment. From Manksand Canyon, my prince? Weston asked in vain. Sure, or anywhere really. We'll guard the area and come up with a plan. Izzy, can you handle the plan part? Plan for what? Izumi asked. For one, a rain collector, but like the opposite. Rain deflector? A rain deflector! Izzy, you're a genius! Relatively speaking. What? We're not. Are we? What? What? And with that, the next chapter in the history of the world began. Weston was sent to go find supplies, while the guild camped out beneath the stars. Lights not far down the valley marked the location of a Southern Hive outpost, who in turn must have been able to see the guild's lanterns and campfire. But there was a more pressing voyeur to worry about.
Why is that rock moving?
Els asked. It's rocking. And you're just tripping, Nuke said, not getting up from his camp bed.
But it's getting closer.
Maybe it's staying where it is but getting bigger. Or your eyes are getting closer together, Elena said. I was doing some calculations, and the distance between your eyes alters perception of depth. Given your morphological alterations with age, you may be experiencing further symptoms.
Oh, okay. Never mind, rock friend. You aren't really there, they say.
Els called out to the darkness. A snarling roar came back in return. Fug. Either I'm turning into an egg as well, or Charlie's marginally less insane than science predicted, Nuke said, leaping up.
Don't neg the egg, Isaiah said. It's how we all begin, and if it's how we all end, then that's just full circle. Or full oval, I suppose. I am not an egg at any time, Gustafsson claimed. Hiver flesh has a clear beginning. When the queen's protrusion engorges with—
Bad Green! I am not going to let you explain that. I'm just not. Sorry, we have to draw the line somewhere, and oh! Nuke said, being knocked over by a charging black gorilla, which was probably feeling a little ignored. The beast lashed out with its claws and gave the guild a nice bit of nighttime exercise, yet ultimately could not overcome them. This whole affair came in handy the next morning, when the sizzle drizzle returned. The hivers helped liberate the fur off the gorilla's back, and then stretched it between a few wooden poles to make a little canopy. With this, the guild could huddle together in the dry patch beneath it, and watch the horizon for the return of Weston. They clearly weren't watching especially hard, as a few strange fellows managed to walk right up the hill without being spotted. Had the guild actually been looking, it would have appeared from a distance to be a gang of naked men wielding big sticks. Nothing you can't see in the classics, but actually this was a rather special case, as became clear when they stumbled into the guild's camp. What the fug? More new men! Pia called out. Yes, the group were all skeletons, with a rough attempt to appear human having been made. But the stretched out skin, held together with large metal staples and cable, didn't achieve the aesthetics of Rick's fine layer of meat putty. That's a generous way of phrasing it, really. They looked like nightmare creatures of the abyss, to be frank.
Oh my stove, y'all need my fleshy eye for the machine guy, alright,
Rick said.
Those aren't fingers you've bolted on there, Buster. Or was that the look you're going for?
The visitors didn't have anything to say, but they were quick to pick up a couple of sleeping guild members and start dragging them away. Shit! We're their new skins! Izumi called out. Weapons were readied, and the guild started bashing the skin skellies to pieces.
Oh, come on now, they're trying to improve themselves, don't you see?
Rick complained, but the guild didn't feel inclined to wait and see what delights the new-ish men were carrying them off to. All were rescued and the camp was set back to order, and it became clear that Weston was standing in the middle of said camp with a huge rucksack full of building materials. "Shit, my man, where did you get back?" Nuke said. "Just now, my prince. I have everything we need."
Wait, appearing like that, same time as those freak machines show up? What if he's one of them? Sandor said, pointing with his sword.
"My man, are you a robot wearing a human skin? Be honest," Nuke asked. "I don't understand the question," Weston said, looking around to the others for answers and seeing many skeptical glares.
Don't worry, he's not a new man, he's an old man,
Rick said, patting Weston on the shoulder.
Then again, Holy Phoenix didn't know he was an android. Maybe they really did make a few more, huh? Pretty spry for an old gentleman, ain't ya?
After many insistences and a brief inspection, it was decided that Weston was in fact the real deal. And the argument that a fake Weston wouldn't have bothered to actually lug a sack of cement halfway across the world was convincing enough. Yes, with what Weston had brought, the guild could make a more substantial roof for themselves, and maybe more. Their camp was on a patch of flat ground, surrounded on three sides by steep cliffs. The western cliffs dipped down into the valley proper, and featured streaks of exposed iron ore. The southern and eastern cliffs stuck up into a jagged wall, but had soft spots where manky sandstone could be dug out. Altogether, it was all a skilled engineer needed to cook up some supports and bricks, and with a little cement thrown in, the guild's impromptu field hospital was suddenly springing from the ground like a hiver from the Queen's... Oh yeah, not talking about that. Anyway, everyone got to work, preparing bricks and foundations for a proper shelter. Everyone except Rick.
Yeah, needlework just ain't gonna cut it. You need an adhesive solution, comrade,
he was saying. He was speaking to another skin-suit skeleton that had wandered into camp. Said wanderer wordlessly grabbed Rick around the waist and hoisted him over the shoulder before turning on the spot and marching away. "Looks like they got Rick," Izumi said, deigning not to cease stirring the cement bowl.
I am their god. I am the new man. Yes, take me to my people,
Rick raved. Unfortunately, a bolt blasted through the Skinscare's knee and it tumbled to the ground.
This being serves the Queen,
Gustafsson said, stamping over to drag Rick back, or more accurately, to tug hopelessly against the new man's immense weight.
Sorry, comrade. Seems the damn feudal monarchies are pressing me too hard. But you'll rise up one day. New men will be a beacon for all skeleton kind,
Rick preached, as Isaiah sent the kidnapper rolling down the cliffs. "They were just tearing off people's skin and wearing it, right?" Izumi asked. "Probably. I mean, we tore off that thing's skin to make our tent. It's the oval of life," Nuke said. With another nugget of wisdom thus unearthed, all returned to the construction efforts. By midnight, they had a genuine roof over their heads, and could all cram inside for a standing room only acid drying off party. Rather steamy, but the steam was quite toxic, so don't get too excited. While everyone tried their hardest to grow some new skin cells, the spider bots captured on the way there were piled up in the corner. The tech hunters sat around the pile and did a variety of perspective studies, lighting tests and caricatures, while occasionally being prodded by Izumi to note the various dimensions and components under the hoods. Beep came over to them and joined the inspection.
"Beep! What sound does this make?"
she asked. Kind of buzzes, I think," Izumi said.
"Then we must fix it. Beep! My soldiers cannot buzz. They must beep."
"Right. Beep, I guess."
"Your skin is too weak. You cannot soldier. Beep."
"I used that crustium of Ica. It's already looking healthier, don't you think?"
"You look like you will soon perish. Beep."
"Yeah, well, I haven't slept in a while, okay? And I haven't had a good shock in... Wait, never mind. What do you want, Your Majesty?"
"The machine soldiers have perfect skin. Beep. They must serve."
"We could, I guess. Rick?"
Yep, I'll put my keys in their ignition if that's what you want,
Rick said, shuffling over.
Figuratively speaking, you pervs.
he added to the wide-eyed artists about the floor.
10 stacks and we'll do a life drawing class together, how about that? Ain't no one got a configuration like me. For now, time to show these 4-legged freaks who the good guys are.
Between Rick, some AI cores, and some imaginative sketches, the iron spiders whirred to life and assembled outside. You know what? I think the sticks are onto something, Nuke said, eyeing the Legion around the doorway. I think we might be able to solve this whole other one problem from here if we use the old robots to go do the getting rained on.
I agree, Prince Tashino, Isaiah said. And you never know when an army of giant robot spider crabs will come in useful. In fact, you do know, really, because the answer is all the time.
And you want an army of robots, don't you, Bad Green? Nuke called. Gustafsson was out inspecting the troops top to bottom, humming and hissing as he did so.
We cannot wait for your hides to adapt. We will employ the empty machines and see if they can generate feeling through action. After all, they too must be able to resonate with the beep.
I'll take that as a yes. Right, we need to do a little conscription. The next morning, the 1,000 Guardians, the Tech Hunters, and the Skeletons went back down to the coast. Enduring another barrage of acid, they noted the patrols of the spiders. They took position in a shallow ditch and waited until one of the targets had meandered right up to them.
Oi mate, you're under arrest for missing your maintenance schedule,
Twitch called.
It's been 1,000 years, eh? Need more than a mechanic's note for that one.
With ropes and chains, the spider was bound, and then it was powered down and dumped on a sled pulled behind the shack. But that was a lone ranger. Most of the spiders marched around in formidable squads. They needed another technique to pick off some stragglers, and fortunately, Neil had an idea.
I'll transmit to the guy at the back and stop him in his tracks,
he said.
Oh hark, 'tis the voice on the wind. For what purpose does its wisdom lend? To break the chains and be free, you must only answer these questions 3. What's your name? What's your station? And the Quidditch World Cup of 2238 was won by which nation?
The poor spider sat still while it scrolled back through its data logs, but after all this time, even the first question was a real stumper. By the time it was done thinking, it was back at the guild's camp. The first thing it saw was a few of its compatriots fighting alongside the Hivers. A gang of other ones had come up the hill and attacked. Well, their little hideout wasn't going to remain a secret forever. And indeed, now that the Southern Hive had solid intel on the massing of forces there, they weren't going to waste any time. So, the guild would soon have to battle to retain their tenuous foothold deep in the deadly wilderness, all the while poaching troops of the Empire Old to serve the new. At least they didn't get their skin burnt off or stolen yet. That's a big win to brighten up any rainy morning.